So, I've been a PlayStation gamer ever since I was a kid. So what the hell am I doing with the Xbox Series S? Well, there's two reasons. If there was ever a time to buy two consoles and play more games, it's now, as the world goes to shit. And it is the cheapest way for Sony fans to dip their toes into Game Pass. And as of right now, a month has passed since I was lucky enough to pick one of these up on one of the random stock drops on Amazon. And if you're still waiting for it to come back in stock, then sit back and enjoy this unique review as I answer two very simple questions. Is it worthwhile for a PlayStation gamer to pick one up? And more broadly, is it any good? Let's get into it. Hey up, and welcome to New Rising Media, your home of hands-on reviews and gloves-off opinions about tech and gaming. I'm Jason England, all-round nerd journalist, and I thank you, right there, for taking the time out of your busy day to check out this video. Cheers. Right, so a bit of preamble to kick off this review, starting with the general declarations. I bought this console myself, it was not provided to me by Microsoft, and I paid £249 for this, or $299, which is the RRP at the moment. I've sunk a good 10 to 12 hours a week into playing several games across several generations, across several consoles on this thing. More on that later. And to my PlayStation gamer comment up at the top of this video, I don't say that as if I am quickly rushing to Xbox's Twitter feed and responding lol, PlayStation rules, Xbox rules every now and again, because come on, we can all be a bit more mature than that. We can all love each other. It's games. Who the hell doesn't love games regardless of where they come from? I say it because much like when you find your favourite kind of fizzy drink, it's difficult to go elsewhere. Then you see the maniacs that pick Panda Pops and you put them straight in the bin where they belong. I started with a PS1 for my 8th birthday and a PS2 a couple of years later. I did dabble elsewhere though, and I picked up an Xbox 360 because all of my friends were getting it, and online multiplayer was one of my main motivations at the time. Plus, I wasn't going to spend my life savings on a PS3. But then I did jump back over to the PS4, and most recently I've picked up the PS5, which is down there somewhere, but I've done my 1 month review of that, which you can find by clicking the eye above my head. But this love for Sony's consoles doesn't make me blind to how good the latest generation of Xboxes are, and more importantly, how good the games are getting on there. There are so many people who talk about the PS5 and the Series S being the combo breaker of console pairings to get, where the PS5 is your go-to console to get the 4K versions of AAA title releases, whereas the Series S is your Game Pass portal to all of the Xbox exclusives. It's like betting on all the horses in a race, you win whatever happens. As I mentioned in my Series S unboxing, which again, eye above my head, around there somewhere, this makes the Series S a Game Pass Trojan horse of sorts, a way for Microsoft to get a seat at Sony's dinner table and start to help themselves to more and more of the garlic bread without them noticing. Sony will obviously kick off, but why would you want to get angry at innocent old Series S here? It is small and non-threatening. Obviously it's not stolen your garlic bread, but also it has fable. Really weird metaphors aside, I've broken this review down in the same way as I did for my PS5 and M1 MacBook Pro reviews. Again, eye above my head. Managed to get a mention of another video in there. Cross promotion. So how's about we dive in and we take a look at the hardware of this thing. My thoughts on the box itself have changed, but in the inverse to what actually happened to my thoughts on the PS5. Mr. Midlife just zooming by. You see, I was one of a minority that thought the PS5 looked good when I got it. It was a big box, it was a hell of a statement piece to have to say, I've got a next-gen console. Look at this thing. But over time, its size and its stature was just really annoying to fit anywhere. That's what she said. But for the Series S, the opposite happened. Because when I first looked at this, I thought it just looked weird. Well, upright, it just looks like a fast food drive-through tannoy system when it's meant to be on its side because of the way that the X is positioned. But then this vent on the top again, it just looks strange to me. But now, to paraphrase Blazing Squad, I'm gonna flip reverse my opinion on it, because the small, sleek design is an absolute godsend compared to the PS5 for fitting into my home entertainment system, fitting into the home setup, and for carting to and from as well. Don't get me wrong, I loved the idea of next-gen consoles getting big for the benefit of airflow, so it didn't sound like a Twister movie every time you fired up a game. But this is a seriously small and lightweight machine. For reference, 6.5 by 15.1 by 27.5 centimeters, with a weight of just under 2 kilos. And even with these compact dimensions, this thing doesn't kick up a loud fuss at all. In fact, it's mostly been silent for me. Granted, it may take some truly next-gen games to pull it to the test, but right now I've had no problems with it whatsoever. And the boxiness of the design, it's just much more restrained, and I'm a much bigger fan of something that is much more restrained in its design. As you've probably heard me say multiple times on my Underseat Dark Demon gaming chair review, click the eye above my head for that one. It just means it melts away nicely into any setup. Plus the game controller is pretty nice and comfortable to use as well. It's not any kind of a massive step up over the last gen. Plus I'm really not a fan of the fact that they keep using disposable AA batteries over putting a lithium battery in this thing. Plus it doesn't have any of the real next gen feeling haptics or adaptive triggers of the PS5 controller, but it feels great in the hand. I really like the gripped texture on this controller, and its decent size means you'll struggle to feel real hand fatigue that you normally got with the PS4 pad. And now it's time for performance and usability. How powerful is it? And how does that translate to the end user experience? And much the same way as I started this section of my PS5 review, I'm going to stick the specs here. Feel free to take a look at them. If you're interested in that kind of stuff, take note. You got them? Good. Because no one cares really. The Wii absolutely trounced the PS3 and Xbox 360 sales, and that thing couldn't even do HD because it was intuitive and it used what limited power it had to give a great user experience. And for the Xbox Series S, this is a tale of two parts for me: resolution and speed. The Series S is capable of 1440p gaming at 120 frames a second, which is good. In fact, it's great. Consoles rarely have the ability to reach such a high frame rate, but this recent crop does, bringing you closer to the PC master race than ever before. But for those who want the absolute best, the Series X and the PS4 are the only two consoles that can do 4K gaming. In fact, on paper, the Series S has less power technically than the Xbox One X, which means that via the pretty clever smart delivery function where you get the best version of the game no matter what piece of Xbox hardware you're playing it on, you actually play the Xbox One S version of older games. And no doubt you see current games more restrained on this system, like Forza Horizon 4 running at 1080p on this machine rather than 4K. If you've just invested in a massive 4K telly and you want to make the most of that picture, this is not the box for you. You should save up some money and grab yourself the Series X. And in fact, if you do so, you'll actually get a decent amount of storage as well, with just 512 gigabytes on the SSD of this, with a very limited amount of that actually available to use after the OS. You're left having to make those difficult decisions about what games to have and not have on the system all over again. And plus, the proprietary 1TB storage expansion can set you back a couple £100, and before you know it, this plus storage expansion is the same cost as an Xbox Series X. So if you're wanting that, you might as well dole out for the bigger one. But that's not to say this thing isn't powerful. Some games like Ori Will of the Wisps can still run at 4K 60 FPS, and it looks beautiful. But this is not consistent across all games. Simply put, if you want the absolute best picture, don't get this. But if you don't necessarily care about that, and if 1440p is fine for you, which it'll be fine for most people, then do give this a look. As for the speed part, I know that this doesn't have the custom SSD of the PS5, but Microsoft have done some insane software wizardry with Quick Resume here. Let's take an example here. Say I'm playing Skate 3 on here, and I've been playing it in here in the spare room on my 4K monitor back here, and I want to move the carnage through to the living room for the bigger screen experience. Normally with the PS4, I'd have to unplug everything, take it through, plug it all in, go through the startup sequence and load up the game and get back to where I was before. For the Series S, and I don't know how they've managed to do this, especially when I have to unplug the power, sometimes this thing starts up instantly. And then I open the game and the quick resume icon appears in the top corner, and before I know it, I am back to the exact pause screen where I'd left off before. Not only that, but then I'd want to switch games to Forza Horizon 4 and I'll see it saved that spot in the game as well. This is arguably the most next generation part of this package. Is it perfect? No. It's a little inconsistent at times in that 75% of the time it'll work. every time. And not all games support it right now. But when it does, there's nothing quite like it. And the fact that they've got it working at this point means that it's only up from here for the feature. Now for the most important part of any games console. Is it easy to use? And are there good games on it? And to that first question, the answer is yes, but it takes a little getting used to. The whole UI is a little overcrowded. Whereas the PS5 UI relies on a simple rows and columns format, this is just all over the shop with items in different directions and a couple of windows that can come over the top of whatever you're doing as well. After a while, it will just click and it will make sense. I especially do like the UI integrations with my phone to import screen captures, and then I can post them to Twitter far more easily on my phone than trying to use the keyboard on the PS5 with my controller. But Microsoft could do with putting some work into cleaning up the OS. Give apps and games and console features very different elements on the OS rather than having them all jumbled into one menu at the top. Stop relying on a wide array of tabs across all kinds of different directions and give each element its own sense of purpose. And now for the games. Obviously, this thing doesn't come with a disk drive, so you can't go and get something pre-owned from Game and pop it in. You're relying on the online store pricing of games, which obviously they stick a lot closer to the RRP. That's how they get you. But of course, chances are you're not going to pay a single penny for a game on this thing, because you're going to be relying on that wonderful service called Game Pass, which I can happily say if you do, you will not be disappointed. It's a great and ever-changing mix of AAA blockbusters and indie darlings, with a core base of first-party titles that you'll keep coming back to again and again and again and again. For example, I absolutely loved playing Hellblade, Forza Horizon 4, Gears 5, Halo 5, and I'm just tearing through the Master Chief Collection at the moment. But alongside this, I also enjoyed Donut County and the Outer Wilds, and with EA Play included in the price as well, I've really enjoyed the unique experience of Sea of Solitude. And sure, the games on there at the moment, they don't really feel that next gen, because they're not next gen games, and the next gen library for these new consoles is basically non-existent. But in that same vein, I don't get the insanely good value for money of something like Game Pass. I don't get a constantly curated library of great titles no matter what I want to do, whether it's playing Overcooked with the missus or chainsawing someone in half on Doom Eternal when I've had a particularly bad day at work. In fact, you could argue that to some degree, I've been playing this a little bit more than I've been playing my PS5, because this is a great content discovery machine. Basically, the games are good, and Microsoft have made an incredible service where you will discover new experiences that you have never played before. But speaking of the games coming for this, what will the future hold for the Xbox Series S? This will be the ultimate test for the Series S, because while it technically has similar hardware to the Series X, it is nowhere near as powerful. So what does that mean for the crop of real next-gen games that are coming down the pipeline? Will they perform well on this machine that has 2 terabytes less than the Xbox One X? The simple answer is, I don't know. And that's the gamble that you make with buying a cheaper machine like this. I have no doubt that Microsoft's first-party lineup of games will perform perfectly fine on this. But what about beyond the next couple of years? Will the restricted power of this machine cost it its future? Will developers end up feeling tied down by this and eventually move on from supporting it? Maybe we get a Cyberpunk situation where the newest launches are just downright unplayable on this thing. Or maybe we'll get a Series S tier of Game Pass where all the latest games that wouldn't be able to play on this are just hidden from view. These are big questions for the next few years of this thing. But as of right now, and as for the next 24 months, this will be fine for you. So that's it, right? Not exactly, because there's an entirely different side to this machine that many people may not even see for the entire time that they use it. But with an hour of elbow grease and 12 quid or $19, you can turn the cheapest next-gen console into arguably the best emulator I have ever used. I won't go into too much detail here. You can read my feature about installing RetroArch onto this and my experience playing on it. I'll pop the link down in the description below. Or there are plenty of super detailed, in-depth videos about the experience as well. One that I'll highlight is a really great video from Modern Vintage Gamer about the emulator, but for those looking for specific step-by-step guides, just search. You'll find so many. But it's suffice to say, playing all of your favorites on one box, including PlayStation games, feels weird on an Xbox. Plus, being able to play old PlayStation games on an Xbox makes this Xbox better at PlayStation backwards compatibility than an actual PlayStation. Awkward. So for what it's worth, don't miss out on doing this. It's completely legal. It's easy to do via Microsoft's rules of setting up a developer account, switching this to dev mode and sideloading a UWP program. And this doesn't take over your entire console. You still have the Microsoft walled garden experience as well, where you'll probably spend most of your time anyway, because they do such a great job with Game Pass and everything else on there. But for those trips back in time we all need to the games of yesteryear, like reminding yourself that SSX Tricky turns 20 years old this year and that EA absolutely need to make a remaster, it's just a very nice thing to have, and it dramatically increases the amount of time we will be playing on this thing and increases the value of the box. Okay, so let's relate everything back to the key questions that I asked up at the top of this video. As a PlayStation gamer, do you absolutely need an Xbox Series S? No, of course not. Don't be silly. But it is a worthwhile purchase if you've been looking over at Microsoft's offering, fawning over Game Pass. It's an affordable entry point into the Xbox ecosystem. The hardware is nice and compact and quiet in operation. The controller fits nice in your hand and is comfortable for long periods of play. And of course, Game Pass is one of the best subscription services going at the moment. There are some caveats though. The OS takes a little bit of getting used to for PlayStation newcomers. The limited storage on this thing is a problem, and the fact that Microsoft still don't put a rechargeable battery in with their controllers is very annoying. And across a couple of titles, not every single one, just a very small minority, the difference in visual fidelity between this and the likes of a PS5 or the Series X is pretty stark. Provided you can live with these compromises, and remember this is just a Game Pass machine to your main PS5, then you're golden. You're gonna have so much fun with this. For gamers in general, who have waited for that initial storm of the release window to die down, only to be in the post-apocalyptic wasteland that is limited stock drops and Argos e-commerce. For the Americans out there watching this, think Walmart's online queuing system, only about 10 times worse. The conclusion is a little bit different. If you want a full 4K next generation console experience, save up your money and get yourself the Series X or the PS5. But if you don't care so much about that insane level of visual fidelity, and really be honest with yourself with that question, because you hear a lot of people saying, oh, 4K really matters, but actually does it? I've no doubt looked at games on this and thought, that looks pretty. So most of you will have no problems with this. And if you just want a good box that plays good games at a good price, there is really nothing better out there right now than the Xbox Series X. Alright, and that is going to do it. Thank you all so very much for watching this video. It means the absolute world that you'd come to check out my videos. Are you interested in buying an Xbox Series S? Are you saving up your pennies for the bigger next-gen consoles, or are you going to wait for a little bit? Because by the end of this year, the picture could be very different for something like this. Go in and let me know in the comments. And as always, likes if you enjoyed the video, subs if you loved it, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care.